She was cold, shaking, and her body was covered in bruises. The cell was small, the walls were metal, and there was no bed. Only a single dim light hung above her. Flickering like it was about to die, she had stopped crying hours ago maybe. Even days ago, her throat hurt, her voice was gone, and her hands were tied in front of her. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, shivering in silence. The aliens came in twice a day, once to hurt her, and once to ask the same question. Where is the human fleet? But she didn't know. She told them again and again, but they didn't believe her. So they shocked her, cut her, and shouted in a language she barely understood. At first, she fought back, screamed, kicked, and begged. But by the fourth day, she was too weak to resist. Now, she just closed her eyes and waited for the pain. Her name didn't matter anymore. No one called her by it. To them, she was just the traitor or the spy. But she wasn't a spy. She had only tried to help a human boy who crash-landed on her planet. He was scared and wounded, and she gave him food and water. She hid him from her people, thinking it was the kind thing to do, but someone saw her, reported her. And that's when everything went wrong. Her own people gave her up to the alien overlords. They dragged her from her home and took her to this station. Now she was here, far from home, far from help. And close to death, the cell door opened again. She flinched, expecting another round of torture. But this time, only one guard entered. He looked at her with cold eyes, then dropped a small piece of bread on the floor. She reached for it, her hands trembling. He smirked and stepped on it, crushing it under his boot. Then he left, laughing. Tears rolled down her face, not because of the bread, but because she still hoped for kindness. She looked at the wall, covered in scratches, one for each day. She counted them, slowly, with weak fingers. 7. It had been 7 days since she arrived. 7 days of pain, fear, and silence. Her body was still alive, but her spirit was fading. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Please, just let me sleep forever." But suddenly, something changed. She heard shouting outside the cell, not the usual kind. There were alarms, loud bangs, and strange screeching sounds. It wasn't the normal routine. Something was wrong, or maybe something was finally right. She lifted her head and listened. There were blasts now. Like someone firing a weapon inside the station, guards were shouting, running, then screaming. Then silence, a few seconds later. Her cell door creaked open. She expected to see another angry alien, but instead she saw something strange. A tall figure, covered in dust and blood, stood at the doorway. It was a human wearing cracked armor and holding a smoking weapon. He looked around, then stepped in slowly. Her heart raced, but she couldn't move. She stared at him with wide eyes, not sure if she was dreaming. The human looked at her, then knelt down. He took out a tool and broke her metal cuffs in seconds. She felt her arms fall free, heavy and sore. "Can you walk?" he asked in a deep voice. She tried to speak, but only coughed. He nodded, then gently lifted her into his arms. "You're safe now," he whispered. She couldn't believe it. After all the pain, after all the days of torture, someone had come for her. And not just someone, a human. He carried her through the hallways, stepping over alien bodies. The station was full of smoke and fire, lights flashing red. She looked at his face, calm, focused, angry. This was not a soldier, not part of any army. He was wild, reckless, and full of fire. She managed to whisper, "Why?" He looked down at her and said, "You helped one of us, didn't you?" She blinked, unsure. Maybe she had. Maybe that boy she helped long ago was the reason. But it didn't matter now. What mattered was that she wasn't alone anymore. The nightmare wasn't over yet, but it had finally changed. Now the story was no longer about pain, it was about escape and revenge. *, the ship shook as it entered deep space. Inside, the girl lay on a small bed. Covered in a thin blanket, her body still ached, but her mind was awake now. Alert, full of questions, the human sat across from her, fixing a damaged panel near the cockpit. He hadn't said much since the rescue. Only gave her water, patched her wounds, and said, "Rest." But how could she rest? Every breath she took reminded her she was alive. Every glance at him reminded her she was safe for now. She watched him silently, trying to understand who he really was. His armor was dented and mismatched, like it had seen many battles. A symbol on his chest was half burned, and no rank or badge could be seen. She finally gathered the strength to ask, "Who are you?" He didn't look at her, just kept working. Then, after a pause, he said, "No one important." That answer made her more curious. "You're not with the fleet?" He shook his head slowly. "They don't like me very much, the ships." Lights flickered, and she winced. He got up, walked over, and adjusted something on the wall. Then he came closer and offered her a small protein bar. She hesitated, but hunger won. She ate slowly, eyes still watching him. He sat down across from her, finally making eye contact. "I'm guessing you want answers," he said. She nodded. Her voice still soft. "You saved me, but you don't even know me." He leaned back, took a deep breath, and stared at the ceiling. "I was on a recon job, alone, listening to comms. From the station, I heard the screams. Yours? I wasn't supposed to do anything. I was supposed to report it and move on, but I couldn't." Her eyes widened. He had heard her pain. All those screams she thought were lost in the dark, he had heard them. He continued, his voice low and rough. "They said they had a prisoner, an alien girl helping humans. They were laughing about how long you'd last. I got angry, really angry." She didn't speak, just listened. This human, he wasn't like others. He wasn't following orders or chasing glory. He had come for her, because couldn't ignore it. "I'm not a hero," he said, breaking the silence. "I've done bad things. I've lost people. I gave up a long time ago, but when I heard your voice, I couldn't stay out of it." She looked at him, really looked at him. There were scars on his neck, across his jaw, and one above his eyebrow. Old wounds, signs of old pain. But his eyes, they were full of something she hadn't seen in years. Not just anger, not just sadness, but purpose. "Thank you." She whispered. He didn't reply, just nodded and stood up. He walked back to the controls, checking the scanners. Then suddenly, alarms beeped. He swore under his breath and pulled the ship hard to the left. "What's happening?" she asked, gripping the bed. "Patrol drones," he said. "They're tracking us." The ship shook again. Harder this time, he pressed buttons fast, rerouting power to the engines. "You can fly?" she asked in surprise. "Enough to not die," he replied with a grin. The ship zipped through asteroid fields, dodging red lasers and blinking lights. She watched in shock as he flew like a madman. Laughing between curses, he wasn't just a fighter. He was reckless but skilled, the kind of person who didn't fear death. The kind of person who brought chaos wherever he went. After what felt like forever, the scanners went silent. They had lost the drones. The ship slowed, entering a quiet patch of space. He leaned back, breathing heavily, wiping sweat from his forehead. "You always fly like that?" she asked, still shaken. He smirked. "Only when someone's shooting at me." There was silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was calm, almost peaceful. She sat up slowly, her strength returning. "You don't even know my name," she said. He looked over. "Then tell me." She told him her name. And for the first time, he smiled softly. "I'm just a guy," he said. "Call me what you like." She nodded, then whispered, "Thank you, just a guy." They both chuckled, quietly outside. The stars passed by the window. Inside, something new was forming trust. Not built on duty, not built on orders, but on action, sacrifice, and survival. She didn't know where they were going, but she knew this: wherever he went, it was no longer just about escape. It was about something bigger. Something that started the moment he kicked down that cell door, and she was ready to follow. The ship floated in silence, hidden deep inside a cold asteroid belt. Outside, the stars sparkled like broken glass. Inside, the lights were dim, and the only sound was the quiet hum of life support. The girl lay on the medbed, breathing slowly. Her body was healing, but her mind still carried the weight of fear. She touched her wrist where the bruises had not yet faded. Each mark reminded her of the pain, the questions, the cold table. She looked up and saw the human sitting nearby. Watching her, he had removed his armor, showing more scars beneath his torn shirt. Some were old, some fresh, but none seemed to bother him. He sat with a cloth in one hand and a bottle of disinfectant in the other. "Hold still," he said gently, cleaning a cut near her shoulder. She flinched, but he was careful. His touch was steady, not soft, but not cruel either. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I do." He replied without looking up. She studied his face-tight jaw, tired eyes, blood still dried near his ear. He hadn't rested since they escaped, every hour. He worked repairing the ship, checking maps, patching her wounds. But never once did he complain. She finally asked, "Why do you look so angry all the time?" He paused, then wiped his hands and leaned back in the chair. "They hurt you," he said simply, "but they've hurt many others too." She replied, "Yes," he said, "and that's why I'm angry." He stood up and walked to a nearby shelf, pulling out a small holographic projector. A blue map appeared in the air. Glowing softly, it showed the prison station they had escaped and other blinking red dots. "Those dots," he said, "are similar bases. They're torturing others too." Her eyes widened. "How do you know?" "I've been listening," he said, "for weeks, maybe months. Can't remember. I pick up their encrypted signals. I record everything. Study it at night." She stared at the map, feeling sick. She wasn't the only one. "They'll never stop," he said quietly, "unless someone makes them." She looked at him, surprised. "You mean, go back?" He nodded slowly. "Not just to your station. To all of them." She sat up, feeling her heart pound. "You're one man." She said, "They have armies." He chuckled. "Good thing I'm not trying to fight fair." He turned and opened a hidden panel behind the wall. Inside were explosives, hacking tools, and weapons that looked too advanced for a civilian. She gasped. "Where did you get all this?" He looked back at her, eyes sharp, "From places I wasn't supposed to be." She realized something then. He wasn't just angry. He was preparing. He had been planning long before he found her. She looked down at her hands, still shaking. Slightly. "I'm not strong," she said, her voice low. "I'm just someone who was caught." He walked over and knelt beside her. He didn't smile, but his voice was calm. "You survived," he said. "That's strength." She blinked fast, holding back tears. "No one has said that to me before." "Well," he said, standing up. "Get used to hearing it." They sat in silence again. She watched as he returned to the control panel, fingers moving fast across buttons and screens. He brought up images, reports, alien conversations, everything he had gathered. The walls of the small ship now looked like a war room. He turned to her and asked, "Do you want to help?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I don't want anyone else to go through what I did." That night, they didn't sleep. He showed her how to read signals, how to track ships, how to mask their location. She learned fast. Her hands were still sore, but her eyes were bright, and when he wasn't looking, she stared at him, wondering who hurt him so badly that he now carried this rage. What had he lost? He never said, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that his fire had reached her too. The next morning, he handed her a small device. "What is it?" she asked. "Your first tool," he said. "You'll plant it on their system next time. Next time." She repeated. He grinned. "We're going back." She nodded, heart pounding. Fear and courage mixing together. She was no longer just a rescued girl. She was part of something now. A mission. A cause. A fury shared by two souls who refused to stay quiet together. They were becoming dangerous. The ship floated above a dead moon, hidden in the shadow of a crater. Its engines were off, lights dim, and everything silent. Inside, the girl sat at a table, staring at a small device in her hand. It looked simpler round disk with blinking lights, but it had the power to shut down an entire alien base from the inside. The human stood near the window, arms crossed, watching the stars. His mind was far ahead. Already inside the enemy's next station, he didn't blink, didn't breathe heavy. He was thinking, calculating, waiting. She finally broke the silence. "This is crazy," she said. He turned slowly, his eyes calm but sharp. "Yeah," he replied, "but it's the only way." They had spent the last 2 days studying the stolen map. One of the red blinking dots was a new station, bigger, more guarded. It was where others were held. Prisoners like her, locked and tortured for information. The girl couldn't forget their faces, the ones she saw for a few seconds before the escape. Tired eyes, silent cries, hands reaching for help. She wanted to forget, but she couldn't. "We can't take them head on," she said. "I know," he replied. Walking over and placing a chip on the table, he pressed a button, and a small hologram appeared, a 3D model of the base. "This is where the power core is," he pointed, "and this is where you'll go." Her eyes widened. "Me?" He nodded. "You'll be inside. I'll create a distraction, loud, messy. They'll think I'm alone while they chase me. You'll plant the device." Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at the map. "That place. It's where I was before," she whispered. He paused, then sat down across from her. "I won't make you go back," he said softly. "But if you don't, I will, and I might not come back." She looked at him. The pain still fresh in her chest, but also something else, a burning need to fight back. "To do more than survive, to stop the cycle, I'll do it," she said. "But I need to learn everything." For the next few hours, he trained her, showed her how to move without sound, how to open locked doors, how to hide in plain sight. She listened carefully, learning fast. Mistakes were not allowed. Failure meant death. Or worse. Later that night, as they sat in the cockpit, eating quiet meals, she asked, "What if we die?" He looked at her, his face calm. "Then we die trying," he said. She smiled weakly. "You're really not good at making people feel better." He laughed for the first time in days. It was a rough, short laugh, but it was real. "You're still here, aren't you?" He replied. She nodded. "Yes. Then I must be doing something right." The next day, they suited up. Her armor was light, made for speed and silence. His was heavier, full of weapons and tricks. He gave her a small device. "If anything goes wrong, press this," he said. "I'll come get you." She stared at it, then at him. "What if you don't make it?" "I will," he said, "because you're not dying in that place again." They flew toward the station in silence. As they got closer, the stars around them seemed colder. The alien station appeared in the distance, massive, dark, and alive. With patrol lights, she felt her heart pounding. This was it. He dropped her near a waste tunnel, the same tunnel he had used to escape last time. She slipped inside, crawling through the narrow pipe with only her breath to keep her company. The sounds of alarms, of marching boots, grew louder as she got closer to the main structure. She reached the access panel and slid open a vent, crawling into the base. It all looked the same: cold metal, blinking red lights, the scent of chemicals and pain. Meanwhile, on the far side, The human activated his side of the plan. He blasted the hangar door wide open with stolen codes and started firing at anything that moved. Alarms screamed. Soldiers ran. The entire base shook in panic. He grinned wildly, dodging shots and throwing explosives like a storm. This is the part one. Enjoy, he whispered to himself. Back in the main hallway, the girl moved fast, hiding behind boxes and ducking under wires. She finally reached the core Chembra glass room full of humming energy. One guard stood watch. She waited, heart racing. Then she threw a small rock across the hall. The guard turned and she slipped behind him. A quick hit with a metal pipe he was down. She placed the device near the power grid and activated it. The lights blinked twice green. It was working. She turned to leave, but footsteps echoed behind her. Two guards spotted her and shouted. She ran, heart pounding, zigzagging through the halls. She pressed the "Come." They saw me. I'm coming. He shouted back. She reached a hallway and there he was, charging forward like a beast. He grabbed her arm and pulled her behind cover. You did it. She nodded, breathless. Then let's blow this place to stars. He threw a detonator behind them and they sprinted for the ship. The explosion rocked the base. Shaking the ground, they jumped aboard and lifted off just as fire tore through the station. Inside the ship, she collapsed on the floor, laughing and crying at once. He sat beside her, bleeding but smiling. We did it, she whispered. He nodded. One down, she looked at him. Her eyes fierce now. Let's find the next one. The silence after the explosion felt strange. The girl sat in the ship, her legs trembling, her hands still gripping her knees. The base they destroyed was gone. Just dust, fire, and broken metal floating in space. Now she stared out the window, trying to understand what they had done. A part of her wanted to cry, but another part smiled. He stood beside her, arms crossed, his face calm. But his eyes were searching the wreckage like a hunter still hungry. That's one, he said. But there's another. She turned to him, her voice soft. The main station. He nodded. The one where I found you. Her stomach twisted. That place still lived inside her dreams. No, her nightmares. She had escaped once. But the thought of going back made her feel cold again. You want to return? She whispered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down beside her and pulled out a data chip. This was inside one of the captured computers. He said, it holds records names, faces, locations. She leaned forward and saw the list. Her breath caught when she noticed one name. Her friend, a kind girl from her home colony. She's still there, she said, her voice shaking. He nodded. We get her out. The ship moved quietly through space, avoiding patrols, hiding in dark corners of asteroid belts. She trained every day, learning how to fight, how to move fast. He gave her old gear boots, a short blade, a blaster that only worked if held steady. At first, she was clumsy, but each time she fell, he helped her up. Each time she failed, he said, try again. Her fear began to change. It didn't leave, but it became smaller than her will. Every time she saw her friend's name, she remembered why she had to go back. And every time she looked at him, she knew she wouldn't be alone. One night, as they floated in quiet orbit around a broken satellite, she asked him, why do you keep doing this? He didn't answer for a while, then said, because no one came for my sister. She looked at him, eyes wide. He rarely spoke of his past. She was taken when I was a soldier. He said, I was off-world, fighting some pointless battle. When I came back, she was already gone. By the time I found the station that held her, she was already. He stopped, closed his eyes, and turned away. I wasn't fast enough. The girl sat beside him, silent, not trying to comfort him, just staying close. Sometimes that was enough. They reached the old station on the third day. It looked the same, cold, gray, shaped like a spinning knife in space. But now it was full of new guards, more turrets, more sensors. They're expecting someone. He said with a half-smile. Maybe us, she replied. This time the plan was sharper, cleaner, more dangerous. He would go in through the front again. Loud, messy, fearless, she would enter from above through the vent system he had mapped before. But this time, she wasn't just planting a device. She was rescuing someone, and if she failed, her friend would disappear forever. He stood by the door, placing his hand on her shoulder. "You're not the same girl I pulled from that cell," he said. She looked up, breathing fast. "And you're not the same man who walked in alone." They bumped fists, then split. He fired up a distraction so wild it shook half the station. Grenades, hacking drones. A stolen alien fighter crashing into the hangar. He was chaos in human form, and they chased him like ants chasing fire. Meanwhile, she slipped inside, crawling through tight metal tunnels. Her body knew this place, hated it, feared it, but also remembered it. Every turn, every corner, every room, she moved fast, quiet like shadow, until she reached the cell block. The lights flickered as she opened the hatch, rows of doors each. With a prisoner behind them, she found the number she memorized. The cell opened with a hiss. Inside was her friend, weak eyes, swollen, barely breathing. Her friend whispered, "You?" The girl fell to her knees, tears in her eyes. "I'm here," she said. "I'm not leaving without you." She helped her up, wrapping one arm around her. The alarms were now louder. The station in full panic. She activated the signal one. Short beep, the call for pickup. Minutes later, a door exploded, and he stormed in, gun smoking. He grabbed the weak girl with one arm and pulled them both toward the exit. "Move, move, move." He shouted. They ran through smoke, lasers flying past, sirens howling. The ship doors opened just in time. They jumped inside, and he fired the engines. The station tried to follow, but the ship was too fast. They disappeared into darkness. Leaving fire behind them, inside the ship, the rescued girl cried softly. The one who saved her held her close, and the human leaned back, bleeding again but smiling. "That's two," he said. The girl nodded, eyes fierce again, and were not stopping. Asterisk, the ship drifted through quiet space, far away from war. Inside, the lights were soft, and the air felt still for the first time in days. The girl sat beside her friend, helping her sip warm soup from a metal cup. Her hands were gentle, and her voice low. "You're safe now," she said. But her friend didn't speak much, only looked around with tired eyes. The human stood nearby, watching them silently. He had wrapped his side with cloth. The bleeding had stopped. But the pain was still there. He didn't care. What mattered was that they got her out. He stepped out of the room and into the cockpit. There, he sat in his chair, staring at the stars, not speaking, not moving, just breathing, behind his silence. Thoughts moved like storms. The girl joined him after a while. Sitting beside him in the co-pilot seat, she didn't say anything at first. She just stared at the screen, watching the stars pass. Then she asked, "How do you deal with it?" He blinked, slowly. "Deal with what?" "The pain," she said. "The memories, the guilt, the faces." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "I don't," he said. "I carry them, but don't they get heavy?" She asked. "They do." He nodded. "But I carry them anyway." They sat in silence again. The hum of the ship was the only sound between them. Then he turned to her and asked, "How's your friend?" "She hasn't smiled yet," the girl said softly. "She barely speaks." He nodded. "It'll take time, I know," she said. I want to help her like you helped me." He smiled faintly. "Then do what I did. Stay close." The next few days were quiet. No alarms, no gunfire, no running, just healing. The girl cleaned her friend's wounds, helped her walk again, read to her from old data logs. Sometimes her friend would cry in her sleep. Sometimes she would shake with fear. But the girl stayed beside her. Always. She knew what it felt like. To be alone in that dark place, she wouldn't let her friend feel that again. The human fixed the ship in silence. Wires, panels, engines. He worked like a man with no time left. But she saw the way he looked at them when he thought no one was watching. Soft eyes, sad eyes, proud eyes. He wouldn't say it out loud, but he cared. One night, as the stars outside moved slowly, the girl brought him a cup of water. "You haven't eaten?" she said. "I'm fine," he replied. "No, you're not," she said. "You pretend too much." He chuckled, took the cup, and nodded. "Maybe," he said. "But if I stop pretending, I might fall apart." She looked at him carefully. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You have us now," she said. "You're not alone." For the first time, he didn't answer. He just looked down at the cup and said nothing. The next day, the girl's friend finally smiled. It was small, weak, but it was real. She whispered, "Thank you." The girl hugged her gently, and tears filled her eyes. That moment felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later, they sat together, the three of them. The human brought a deck of old cards, and they played quietly. The ship no longer felt like a weapon, it felt like a home. But the fire inside them wasn't gone. They still remembered the others, the ones still trapped. "Still suffering?" the girl asked. "What now?" The human looked at her, then at her friend. He said, "There's one more." He pulled up the map again this time. A new red dot blinked. "This one's different." He said, "It's where they keep the ones they think are the most dangerous, rebels, fighters, leaders." Her friend's eyes opened wide. "There's a leader there. Someone who helped build the first resistance." She whispered, "If we get him out, we'll have more than just hope, we'll have strength." The girl stood up, her voice steady. "Then let's go." The human smiled, stood up slowly, and tapped the glass screen. "All right," he said. One last storm as they prepared. The girl looked at the weapons not with fear, but with purpose. She wasn't broken anymore. She was a fighter, a survivor, and a rescuer. They were not soldiers, not part of any grand army, but what they had was stronger. They had fire, they had each other, and they had nothing left to lose. The ship glided toward the edge of a massive nebula. Thick clouds of glowing gas lit up the windows. It was beautiful, quiet, almost peaceful. But deep inside, that beauty was a nightmare. A hidden prison known only to a few. The place where the worst stories ended, and where the human planned to begin a new one. Inside the ship, the girl checked her gear one last time. Beside her, her rescued friend handed her a small tracker. "You sure about this?" her friend asked. The girl nodded. "I have to be." They looked at the human, who stood at the map screen, eyes locked on the enemy station. He was calm. But there was something different in his voice now. Not just fire, not just rage, but hope. "This isn't just a rescue," he said. "It's the spark. They have locked away the leaders, the fighters, the loud voices. If we free them, everything changes." The plan was bold, louder than anything they'd done before. They wouldn't sneak in. They would land right at the gates. They would make sure the whole station knew someone was coming. And for the first time in years, the prisoners would hear something that sounded like freedom. The ship flew close and dropped a decoy drone. It blasted fake signals, fake IDs, fake fire. Security scrambled to meet it. Guns pointed in the wrong direction. That was when the real ship shot forward, hidden beneath the noise. It slammed into the docking bay, tearing metal. Doors burst open, and the human stepped out like thunder. He moved fast, guns blazing, voice shouting. He wasn't there to hide. He was there to tell the enemy that someone remembered. That someone cared that someone had come back for those they forgot. Behind him, the girl ran through the halls. Her footsteps were light, her focus sharp. Every step brought her closer to the prison cells. Every room she passed whispered her name. The girl who had survived. The girl who had returned. She reached the control room, slammed the override switch. All the cell doors clicked open at once. Warning alarms screamed. But they didn't matter, because now the prisoners were free. Men and women stepped out, blinking into the lights, their faces thin, their bodies weak. But their eyes lit up when they saw her. She shouted, "Follow me. He's here to get us out." They didn't ask who they followed. The human met them halfway, dragging 2 guards behind him. He was bleeding, but grinning. "Ah, you brought company," he said. She nodded. "You said it was time." They fought their way back to the ship, the rescued fighters helping one another. Even the weak picked up broken tools, smashing open doors and clearing paths. It wasn't just an escape, it was a rebellion. The ship roared to life again, engines pushing hard against the chaos. They all jumped aboard, the human pulling the last rebel through the doors just before they closed. Outside, the station cracked from inside fires. Smoke, sparks everywhere. They didn't destroy it completely. They didn't need to. They broke its purpose, and that was enough. Inside the ship, people sat in silence. Some cried, some held hands. Some looked out the windows with wonder. One old rebel looked at the human and asked, "Who sent you?" He just said, "No one." Then the old rebel looked at the girl and smiled. "You saved us." She didn't know what to say. She didn't feel like a hero. But something in her chest told her this was just the beginning. Word of the rescue spread like fire across ships, planets, systems, whispers of a ghost ship led by a mad human and an alien girl with eyes full of courage. They became something more than people. They became symbols. On one world, a child asked, "Is it true?" Someone came back for the lost ones. A parent nodded, "Yes, and they'll come back again." The human kept flying, not looking for medals, not building a name, just searching, saving one broken base at a time. And the girl stayed by his side, faster now, stronger. She was no longer the girl in the cell. She was the fire at the edge of the dark. They built no empire, raised no flag, but wherever they went, the galaxy remembered that even in the coldest places, even after a week of screams, hope could return. And sometimes it looked like a reckless human and the girl who followed him through hell and back.